What's up, dudes? All right, welcome back to TripleKO. We're getting knocked out 3 times because the third strike is what counts. Hi, Matt. Hi, Justin. How you guys been?
Good. You know, just playing lots of fighting games as always. It's feel like it's been a very good time to be a fighting game fan. I would say the last few months or even just this year.
Yeah. It feels like there's a lot of stuff coming to a head and really cool stuff on the horizon. And we got our yearly anime game, which is just the way it goes with DNF Duel. I know me and you have been playing a whole bunch of it and just sort of checking it out, seeing what's available, seeing what the characters, how crazy the game is, how different it is than kind of modern fighting games. Matt, I know you haven't played it. You were mentioning you haven't tried it earlier, but from an outsider perspective, how bonkers does this game look? Or does it kind of look like every other anime fighting game?
So I was able to get some time in on it, but not through a lot of the main modes, a little bit into the story mode, 20 minutes in the story mode, and just mess around with characters. I haven't had a second to go online. And even if I was, I'm super scared because everything links into everything. Combos are nuts. You 1 second into a match and it seems like you're dead, but people are loving that. People are loving that, I think.
Yeah.
You guys, especially. People don't mind that one touch and you're dead, it seems to me.
Broken fighting games are fun, right? It's
right?
A lot of times people always talk about, there's no such thing as a balanced fighting game, or I want a balanced fighting game. No, we actually want broken fighting games because we just love abusing things that our characters can do. And DNF Duel does such a great job of that. It really doesn't have lots of rules, and it's a lot of creativity, a lot of free-form fighting and making decisions. And every character is also very unique too, where it's very related to their other game, Dungeon Fighter Online.
It's funny. It's like everyone is saying the game is broken, and I don't really disagree because there's such really powerful stuff in here. But when I think of broken fighting games, I think of H&K, I think of the old stuff or maybe even X-Men versus Street Fighter Vanilla, where every character essentially leads you to a corner combo or a throw that leads to an infinite and you're dead. This game doesn't feel broken. It feels very intentional, right?
Yeah.
It feels like absolutely by design that we gave characters really powerful tools, right? You're going to be playing full screen footsies with all these crazy tools. You're gonna get knocked down into your awakening mode. But if you land a hit and you land the right hit and you got the right combo in awakening mode, you can literally rob the other person. And that feels very intentional. And not as to be honest, it's less broken than X Factor. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Ultimate Marvel 3 is way more broken of a game.
If every character is broken, none of them are broken.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a tier list no matter what. No matter how broken you'll make a character. But the thing is, every character has sauce, right? And you're right, Marvel 3 is definitely a more broken game than, I would say, DNF Duel. But I guess it's in a similar realm where in terms of the by design things, people just love it. People are huge fans from just start to finish with their characters. I would say just from a modern fighting game standpoint, it definitely has that old school, I would say very powerful broken fighting game tools that people would say. Just because man, every character does have some cheap stuff.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So which characters have you been hovering around the most?
So I've been playing Hitman. That's my main character. And he's pretty cheap. I would say he's a very fair and honest broken character in the beginning. But once he gets to awakening mode, then the derp of him just comes out. That's his X factor, is awakening mode, right? Where he just gets a second. It's just such a small thing. It doesn't even sound cheap. It's just, he gets a secondary attack from his special moves, right? Which only costs 10 MP. But the thing is, you could do it off of Dragon Punch. And since Dragon Punches are a very, very strong tool in this game, the fact that I could make my Dragon Punch pretty much safe. And if you randomly try to punish me and get hit by it, you actually lose around 80% health. Yeah, very, very very cheap when he gets into awakening mode.
The thing that I've started seeing the most, especially when you get to like the diamond to like a Terranite or Tetranite or whatever the heck the higher ranked is of the game, is that most people will essentially stop awakening, where you kind of specifically fish out really specific hits around like the 30 to 35-ish%, so you can guarantee that they're going to die without awakening, because some characters' win condition is their awakening mode. And it's just like, if they get it, it's almost impossible to win type of situations.
Yeah, then they're just woke for the rest of the match.
Wokeneth.
That's my secret. I'm always awoke. Before we get too deep into it, though, I was wondering if you guys could, like, maybe for any newbies that like don't really know how DNF works and how like the MP system works, like versus other fighting games, and how relatively simple the game is. Could you give like a Cliff's Notes version of like just how it plays from like a moment to moment thing for people that aren't familiar or haven't played yet? Yeah,
it's your pretty much bread and butter strike throw fighting game. You don't have an air block. You can run up and grab the opponent, and there is a very big like guess game at that range, and there's a big reward if you guess whether or not they're going to throw or not. But the biggest difference between this to like Street Fighter 6, Granblue, Mortal Kombat 11, even Guilty Gear Strive to an extent of all the big 2D strike throw fighters, is that all the characters have just insane specials. And their specials can be canceled from specials into other specials, which is a thing that comes from Dungeon Fighter Online. And this also carries like, it's kind of like got a lot of heft. For a lot of characters in this game, the mobility sucks. Like you really can't move around very fast, and actually moving is really not great. But they give you these insanely powerful special tools to either utilize for mobility or just covering a ridiculous amount of space. So
like, I've noticed a lot of dashes in the game are like they take a little bit to wind up. Like a character like for example, like Grappler, I was like, oh, I'm going to dash with him, and he's like, whoa. And then he gets a little bit faster towards like the last like 2 steps. But I was like, wow, this is not like that Arxis style of like movement so much. It's like, it's more like aiding style a little bit, especially like Bloody Roar or something. This reminds me of Bloody Roar a little bit, which is a great thing for me. Specifically,
the awakening mode practically is your beast mode type of thing. You know, it's kind of what it is. But yeah, you're right. Like Grappler is one of the slowest grounded characters in the game, and the reason behind that is that if he touches you twice, you're dead. If you actually get somebody that's good, like he touches you twice, you're dead. But he has to kind of work for that space to jump in, or jump in, or do like armored specials from distance. Like he's got a lot of tools to get in. It's just that they're not all completely safe. It's interesting, right? It's interesting how you have like the game is designed around explosive factors, right? Where just suddenly the match can turn on a dime. And that's kind of what I think I like about it, where it doesn't feel as much robbery like an X Factor situation where it's like, oh, I just pressed like, all my buttons and I go through block stun and now I do a ton of damage and now you're dead. Like X Factor is the biggest robbery mechanic like of all time in anything, and it's brutal. But people love that game. And I think Awakening is like a really an interesting way of utilizing a comeback mechanic that obviously feels cheap, but also integrates stuff that's fun from like Street Fighter 5 and Killer Instinct, where it's pretty much your instinct mode. Like a lot of characters, they're just a different character when they enter their awakening, and you can do way different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of passive buffs where you get like either like damage buffs or defensive buffs, or even just like MP buffs, which is like very important. Also, what's really important to know for like newbies in this game is that like you want to make sure when you're doing combos, you always land your mana skills, right? Because your mana skills is going to be the main special moves that will actually take away great health. Because once you just start doing combos, if you're just doing like regular A, B and the skill combos, you'll notice that the damage is very low. You're like, how come I'm not doing that much damage? The damage actually comes around, revolves around the mana skill. So using the mana skills, and then also using like specific normals and specials that causes ground bounces and wall bounces, that's kind of really where the game shines. Because like normally, like when you're playing Marvel Vs. Capcom 3, there's like a general rule: 1 ground bounce, 1 wall bounce per combo, right? But in DNF Duel, you pretty much can do it until the game decides hit stun deterioration, it becomes a factor, and you could just kind of just keep looping combos, keep looping ground bounces and wall bounces, which is probably why certain infinites we've seen already, like from Crusader has like this infinite already that people found like in day one because of those systems. But that's going to be patched, obviously. So the one thing I like that they're doing is that, yeah, we're keeping all these moves that seem so overpowered or like so overwhelming, but infinites definitely cannot stay. So I'm glad that they acknowledge stuff like that, because it just pretty much like just talks about what Max says is it seems like this is by design on how these moves actually work.
Yeah, I think it's funny when people get all crazy about infinites in fighting games, when vanilla versions of fighting games always have something that's tremendously broken and pisses everybody off. And like when you get a game that has a relatively like kind of an open combo system that allows a lot of crazy stuff to happen, which this game does, yeah, you're going to get some goofy shit that happens. There was already some weird stuff in the previous betas that had infinites, and they took them out in the next beta. So of course they're gonna remove that. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I haven't played Dungeon Fighter like online, the RPG, but does it work the same way where your mana-based special attacks do more damage? Like, is that like a thing from that game that's reflected here? Or do you think it's
not
something
really?
Okay.
Yeah, not really. But the thing is, what Max says, where specials combo into specials, that's definitely that's definitely a Dungeon Fighter Online thing. I would say think of Dungeon Fighter Online as kind of like this action game with like World of Warcraft skills, where you have so many different skills to choose from. So we do get a lot of moves in DNF Duel, but it obviously doesn't showcase every move from the Dungeon Fighter Online, I would say, character roster, especially for Striker. But they got her main moves, which is like very important. They also even got like the passives, kind of like from Berserker, which actually completely is a spot on, I would say, character from Dungeon Fighter Online. So I really love that aspect that they're trying to keep it as like DFO related. Like if you play DFO and you like do these specific combos, we want it to be familiar, right? So the only thing they obviously have a big difference is probably like properties on special moves, where certain moves has just like completely like lots of moves, and DFO has complete invincibilities on their like moves and attack, because they also have a PvP system in DFO where it's very like Power Stone like, where you just run around the map and just kind of like hit and run and
big
do long
events
for
it too.
Yeah, especially in Korea, you could do long combos. The combos are way more longer in DFO compared to DNF Duel. DNF Duel's combos are really cool, but they're like maybe like half the time when it comes to DFO combos.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that stuff's going to open up eventually too. I think even this game will get a lot more stuff over time.
You mean like DLC, or people will just figure things out?
No,
more?
I mean not. Well, no, yeah, people are going to figure stuff
out. Or balance
out.
Patches,
but
rather.
Mostly, yeah, balance patches in the future, if not future updates. Like the game's going to get crazier. They're going to add even more stuff you can do, even better mobility tools and stuff like that.
And it's like already kind of crazy now, just like the combos and stuff I've been seeing. But like it's weird. Like half the time, like when stuff like this happens, people are like, "Oh, what the hell?" I don't know what your guys' timelines have been, but like anytime I've seen anyone post anything, they're like, "I got destroyed by like the second hit of this match, but I loved it."
Yeah,
like people seem to be enjoying it, at least to me. Looking, I haven't actually seen any reviews. I don't remember seeing any like mainstream game reviews at all. Like it just hasn't popped up for me, so I don't know what critically.
I'll say right now, it is the most like 7.5 to 8 out of 10 fighting game you've ever seen.
Okay.
And it's functional, right? It's got some modes. It's got a quote unquote story mode that's like 20 to 30 minutes per character. If you're into Dungeon Fighter, you might actually like it, but like it has the most pretty much tried and true elements to what makes a fighting game. And I think it's actually aptly priced. I think like $50 is just about right. And I think that actually helps in like the review score, and that puts it up to like an 8 out of 10 in my personal opinion. So yeah, it's like anywhere between like a 7.5 to an 8. The best thing the game does is that its online systems work pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Online's so good.
I was going to ask that because I haven't even had a chance to like watch your guys' videos of playing online or try myself, but like it is like solid so far. Like no real problems with the online.
It's really good. Like the first day I played almost nobody but like overseas players, and like I think it's either China, Korea, and maybe Japan. There was a lot of different names and a lot of different languages that I didn't recognize, and they were all running really good. So
that tracks given DNF in general, because it's like a pretty worldwide fan base, right?
Yeah. You'll find a lot of Korean players if you stay up late West Coast time, and that's where the majority of people are actually in ranked is Korean players, because that's where the game is actually its biggest.
Cool. Okay. We mentioned Striker before, and like that's, I don't know why. It's the first character I was like, I wanna mess around with Striker. And then because I already knew like Grappler, but when I played the beta, Grappler was just still weird to me. But of course I didn't have a chance to like, go into practice during the, because it's not, he's got grappling moves, but for a character to be called Grappler, like you need to be a Zangief to me in my head. Obviously, that's kind of the go-to. But he's more like a weird Alex, and even weirder than Alex is. I don't know.
I think he's called Grappler because once you really get like a hold of him, that pun was intended. Once you really get a hold of him, it's hard to leave. Right. Once he gets close to the opponent has to make a very good guess as far as what they have to do to get away from him. And if you guess incorrectly, you're actually dead. So he grapples your heart and he never lets go once he gets close.
Yeah. I would say Grappler is he's definitely like when it starts round one fight, or like if he's full screen away, he's like the worst character in the game, right?
Yeah.
But when he's like in your face, when he finally gets a chance to shine, yeah, that's the part where it's good luck. Because even though you do have like dragon punches and everything like that, he has moves where he has armor to kind of like stop those dragon punches, to take the hit and then launch you and then do like 50%. Like Max said, this game is becoming a two-touch game, where like characters like Grappler or even like Berserker, they just want to hit you twice, and then they hit you once, do a full combo, and then try to hit you a second time. If they do, pretty much the round is done for you, right? Especially if they're in awakening stance. So with Grappler, like he definitely is a very good grappler when it comes to the grappler archetypes, because he has a lot of active normals, he has a good jump, he has even counters, which is very useful against the long range moves. But in general, yeah, I feel like he's very, very scary up close.
Do you hate him, Justin?
I don't want to fight him.
Okay.
Right, because he has this one move that's like he like just does like this jump into like this corridor type of thing, and it crosses you up, and then you actually can lose from that move alone. So it's like you have to really be aware, like like how people fight grapplers in general is like you have to like make sure you react to every single risk taking that they do. This is tried and true with this grappler in DNF Duel.
Okay, because like just messing around with them, I'm like, but I have to actually fight someone online to like really see how it plays out. And I actually like went to Kunoichi at first. When I saw the Kunoichi's trailer, I was like, yeah, generic fire ninja. But like actually playing around with her, I was like, no, it is kind of like I'd say like a simple character in the sense that like, yeah, it's just a lot of fire attacks, so much fire and everything. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, I've seen this stuff in lots of animes, whatever. But her design is cool. And of course, this day one, when I just went onto YouTube, what is the first thing that the algorithm throws at me? It's like, I fixed Kunoichi on the Steam version.
Huge bazongas.
Extra thick. I ordered it up extra thick. And I'm just like, yeah, day one fighting games on Steam. That's how it goes. I mean, and I think, can I get an extra thick grappler, please? Can I not? Why only Kunoichi? I haven't had a chance to mess around with anyone that's like a cleric, that looks like a cleric or smells like a cleric. I don't want any part of them because I'm not a cleric fan.
You don't want to play Crusader. Don't
want to play Crusader or Inquisitor,
bro. Because he's pretty much like the meme character, right? Everyone's like, "Amen." The all the different types of tweets is like, "Oh, God's got my back" and everything. Has just been so hilarious.
I fought a super laggy Crusader last night that had like a 90% win ratio, and I was like, "What the fuck, man?" He's like, "God's got lag on my side." Like, I'm like, this is so fucked up.
God has blessed me with heavenly lag that only affects my opponent.
Bro, you're like, okay, all the netcode is good and all when it comes to like, like Max of California to Korea, but what about California to heaven?
Yeah, that's pretty far. There's so many funny memes that popped up. He has this wall, this holy wall that pops behind you that I swear to God is faster than most jabs in the game. Yep. And it'll pop behind you and then lead you into full combo. So and you could bounce from wall to wall to wall to wall. So you're just juggling off of this holy wall. And every single time people like try to jump against this guy and it catches jumping, there's this moment where it's like, forgive me, Lord, for I have jumped. Like he gets stuck on the ground the whole game.
You know what's crazy about that wall, which makes me like wonder, is that it kind of works the same way as like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 Thanos' Reality Super, where like the wall just comes up and if it comes up, and if it pops up on the first frame and you're not holding back, you can't block it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what this wall reminds me of, where like every time they do like a normal and you think, okay, maybe it's my turn because they're minus or it's my turn to attack, he cancels into the wall last second and you get popped up and you get juggled and then he goes into like, the aura mode or whatever, and then party gets started. So I'm just wondering, like, is that for maybe a possible reference that they got that wall, or it's just a coincidence that wall just works out like that?
It's actually an interesting like thought process, is the comparisons to Marvel, because this developer specifically, Aiding, has a lot of time and tried history with Marvel versus Capcom. They essentially made Marvel 3. So it's funny to me how just the interpretation of this game, because people either like enjoy it or people are seemingly out to hate it in some way. Like it's been very polarizing and very weird how like people are immediately trying to jump the gun and sort of come up with a full conclusion about what the game is, how and it's bad, and how like this should not work against that type of stuff. You know what? It makes me realize that a lot of fighting games, and this is probably a good part of conversation that we can move into about old school fighting games versus modern fighting games. Modern fighting games post Street Fighter V are all very similar, right? A lot of 1v1 games carry over a lot of the same isms that Street Fighter V had, weirdly enough, where things have answers, like a rock, paper, scissors situation where one thing is going to beat two things, and you're sort of going to be put into these scenarios like over and over and over again. And nothing's really difficult. It just comes down to how well do you know your opponent to choose the right thing over and over again,
Yeah.
And this game has a little bit of that, but also doesn't, because it's kind of an old school fighting game that has the crazy explosive, like, oh, we just want to rob you, right?
Yeah.
We just want to take everything from you suddenly in the same way that like you would get hit by a custom combo in Alpha 2 and all of a sudden, oh Jesus, now I've lost 75%. Like, oh my God. It's got some elements of old fighting game jank, which in my opinion has been the
sorely missed.
It honestly has. Like I'm going to say it right now. Like a lot of fighting games over the past like 5-7 years or so have been designed with answers in mind. There's an answer to most situations. And then you get games like KOF 15. There's an answer to situations, but there's 4 things you can do on the defensive end and 4 things you can do on the offensive end. So there's like a lot of decision making there. When in a lot of other stuff, like, no, the developers designed it this way. Here's what you have to do, yada, yada, yada. And even games like Street Fighter V kind of got away from that with characters that came out later on. They try, and that's actually the literal goal of the developers in Street Fighter 6, where they're like, oh, here's all these mechanics, here's all these tools. We want to give you many options to find your answer instead of the answer we have given you. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I like about DNF Duel, at least right now. Characters have so much crazy shit, is that there's no direct like answers to stuff in some situations. Obviously, characters are overpowered. There's definitely going to be like counter matchups and stuff. Like Grappler's really good against the Holy Man. But it's like, it feels like it came from like 10-15 years ago is what this game feels like.
Yeah.
So you guys obviously know better because you're just coming from experience of playing people online, but me just messing around with characters in practice mode and me going, wow, what the fuck? I can do this. Like that connects, like that hits. Well, like I already got that sensation, that feeling of it's pretty loose here in a good way. Like you can do anything. That's really impressive and fun off out of the box just by going through, just messing around with characters. So the fact that like, extends into like fighting a person online and all this stuff is viable and fun. And you're like you're saying, there's not that many answers, like pre-baked answers. Like that's a good thing. And I'm not sure if that's whether it's the DNF influence or it's because that's the way aiding kind of makes their games.
I think it's a lot of aiding.
A lot of factors.
I think it's a lot of the aiding part of it. Like they haven't made a fighting game in a long time, and this game feels like an aiding game. Like it does. And that's an absolute hugely positive situation where things are obviously not going to be thought all the way through. I find it hilarious that there is a almost intentional element in this game, which is that you have, like, when the longer combos get, the more hit stun decay kicks in, right? Literal aiding stuff, right? So you eventually just pop out of the combo if the combo is just too long and you've caused too much hit stun. But there are moves that have infinite hit stun, or I'm sorry, not infinite, a set hit stun. So no matter where they are in the combo, they'll always do a specific amount of hit stun. That is literally the thing that broke the combo system in Marvel 3. Like, that's literally going back to UMVC 3. Virgil's low sword always did a hit stun. Grapple from, Spencer always grabbed you and did this no matter how long in the combo you were, because some characters and some moves in the game would just ignore hit stun decay and always work. And that's literally the same thing here. It's why characters like Sweatmaster are able to just make these crazy long combos, because he has moves that have like a set amount of hit stun no matter how long the combo is, and it's just tried and true aiding.
Yep, and the craziest part about that is that you can actually learn all these combos with the combo trial system. The combos trials, I don't know if you tried it, but man, they are pretty optimal. Like, a lot of times people always try to find like the most optimal combo possible, but all the combos that you see from I would say like the first week of the tournaments, personal streams, most likely they're going to be combos from like combo trial 6, 7, 8, which are like super useful. And yeah, I mean, I do the Hitman one as well too, just because they're so good. And I see all these other combos, especially from Swiftmaster and Berserker, and they're all from
it's pretty much the same thing.
The trial modes, yeah. And the fact that they even teach you how to use conversions in some of the combos, depending on the character, is also pretty neat as well too, just because that's probably the one mechanic that's very seldomly used, I would say, compared to unless you're a Berserker or some other character that relies on kind of like that gray health. But conversions are, I would say, they're pretty tough. Like, what do you think about conversions?
I mean, it's just Baroque from TVC. You're sacrificing your gray health. It doesn't matter how much you have. If you have like a little bit, if you have the slightest pip, it still gives you the same result, I think TVC scaled a bit where if you had more gray health, you did more damage, I think.
You do. No, yeah, you do a lot more damage depending on
the bigger chunk.
How much bigger red life you spend.
And this one, it acts essentially as a cancel. So, and here's the crazy part about it, and it's fun. Like, it's there's some characters in it, and I noticed this in the second beta. Berserker just gets the ability to give himself gray health almost at any point. So he gets just the most nutty. Like, he goes from canceling from one thing to another. It's like, when do I touch this guy? He's like playing a different game. And then Troubleshooter gets the exact same thing where he drinks and he gives himself gray health and a buff. So I feel like if you're playing some characters, like even like Hitman, maybe even like Launcher and something, and you're just sort of doing the same thing and it's leading to the same thing over and over again, some characters play out very samey. But then you play like Berserker or Troubleshooter, they're doing different shit all the time. And that's because they're always utilizing the mechanic that not every character can utilize. It's a little weird. Like, I almost wish every character could do something like this at any point, because conversion is crazy fun.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem with it, is that I never actually get a chance to ever use conversion. Like literally never ever get a chance. And when I see characters like Berserker, where like he does a combo, ends it with that giant
playing a different game.
Right, X red blood, and now you got to guess from like instant overhead or low because of the conversion. I'm like, bro, he does it every like 5 seconds. Like, can I get something like that? I feel like I can never get a conversion off. Usually, if I do a conversion, it's like probably in training mode, right? That's but in actual matches, I would say from Hitman perspective, you do not get opportunities to use conversion at all.
So and I agree with you. Like, it feels that way, and this is where I think that the familiarity of just like game state knowledge eventually over time will really make things open up and really optimize certain parts of the game. When you block blue stuff, you get gray health, right? So you get the ability to convert. when people do wake ups, that is blue stuff. So if you block somebody's wake up, their DP, it gives you gray health, allowing you to do a big fat conversion combo. So now we're seeing where if you block a wake up DP and you do a really specific conversion combo immediately after, it's leading to like 75% on like a block DP now. I'm like, oh, so this is where the game is going. This is what happens when people know the scenario and you have gray health and this is how you utilize it. I'm like, oh shit, this is getting very scary.
Hey everyone, before we continue on with today's episode, I want to give a shout out to Honey, which is today's sponsor. Thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart, basically wherever you want to shop. Guys, I know Justin, you specifically, you've been using Honey a little bit. Would you like to tell us how it works a little bit?
You know, Honey's been pretty sweet to me, right? I think
that was intentional. What he said was intentional.
I think the best part about it is like, as long as you have the extension on, anytime you're on a website and you're checking out like specific products, for me, it's been a lot of like kitchenware. But lately, I've been trying to find like that perfect barbecue grill because it's summertime, and I need to grill some burgers and hot dogs. So I'm looking through these websites, and Honey would just come up. It'll just come up to the right side and just show me, oh, this is a possible savings that you can get for this product, and then you can kind of view on what other products also that's similar to kind of view similar savings as well. So it's been pretty good when saving money.
Yeah, I've been in a pretty similar situation where it's like, oh man, I just got to save a little bit on something, or like getting things that you have to restock every month. I like to call Honey the inflation counter because it's like helping out with all the crazy stuff that's happening. So yeah, it's also helped me out quite a bit too.
I'm sure you guys know, but I'm not sure if the folks at home do, that Honey doesn't just work on your desktop, it works on your iPhone too. Just activate it on Safari on your phone and save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could straight up be missing out on all these coupons. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting TKO. I can't really recommend things that I don't use. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/TKO. That's joinhoney.com/TKO. Thanks again for the sponsorship.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I don't know. I was just going to say, aside from Troubleshooter, Max, from what you're playing and getting modded into the game.
I didn't do that.
I know you didn't do that, but whoever did do that, let's get an extra thick Max as Troubleshooter in there. But aside from Troubleshooter, because Justin mentioned who he's playing, but aside from Troubleshooter, who else have you found is really fun so far?
Berserker. Yeah, and
Berserker,
that was from my second beta. I was playing Hitman and I got pretty bored. I was like doing great, but I got super bored. I was like, this character is awesome, but I'm just not feeling engaged very much by the game. Switched to Berserker and I kind of fell in love with the game. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, this is a different game when you play Berserker. I think I'm also kind of just interested in Lost Warrior just because of how cheap he is. Like, he is such a weird, he's a boss character.
Yeah, what's his deal? Because I haven't unlocked him yet.
His deal is that he's got shitty mobility, barely any wake ups, right? He has like a counter wake up, but it sucks. But he's got this insane like 50-50 shit from full screen type of stuff where if you just let go of block, he can command grab you. And if he has the MP, it's going to go to 45%. And if he has awakening, he can eventually hit you with these glyphs that if you get hit multiple times in combos, stops time. Like Zawarudo's stop time type shit. And then you're stuck and he just beats the holy shit out of you. Long story short, Lost Warrior is like an insanely fun version of Garrus from Mortal Kombat, where he's able to do that nutty shit where he time stops your ass and then just wallops on you. And he is the biggest robbery bitch in the game. I swear to God. It's like this guy landed one hit in Awakening and I lost 80%. I absolutely hate him, but he has like no wake up and he has shitty buttons, so he's actually like really bad. He's the craziest knowledge check character I think in fighting game history.
Right. So he's like, all the mobility stuff kind of sort of balances him a little bit.
A little bit. I think that's what they're going for.
Okay, yeah, just a little bit.
a little bit, like to piggyback what Max said, like if you get hit by 5 MP skills, literally he stops time and he gets like this long combo and keeps going from there. I would say the cheapest part is that his specials literally he has a tracking sword move. So anywhere in the air, it's just boom, 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 3 hits. And anytime, and that's a hard knockdown. So he also has a special move that pretty much off the grounds you from like 3/4 of the screen. So if that hits, for like, let's say you were full screen away and you got hit by that triple sword homing move, he can pick you up from that distance and get a full combo from there and stopping time and dealing 45%.
Yep.
So ultimately, he is an experience for you to fight, especially when it comes to like somebody like that's playing him very good. The computer doesn't really showcase it that much when you're going through story mode. The computer just kind of like just sits there. The point of it at story mode at that point was just, we just want you to unlock Lost Warrior as soon as possible. That's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about that because me and Justin were talking about this a few days ago, because there's 2 schools of thought on locking a character behind in-game stuff. That for content creators, specifically fighting game ones, just give me all the characters right now. I just want to, I want to try out the character, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen some people like specifically just, I'd assume casuals are like, no, I don't want characters locked behind a pre-order bonus. I don't want them as DLC. I just want to play the game and unlock the character. And like, it got really bad in Street Fighter 4 vanilla on consoles, right?
Or
it's
like
a bunch of
unlockables.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I'm kind of, if the story mode only takes 30 minutes when you're just mashing through the dialogue, like that's not that bad, right?
It's really
like,
not.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's really not.
Okay,
like if people are complaining about it, I get it for tournament organizers, but I mean Smash Brothers has like 800 characters locked behind a progress wall. So I mean,
that's true.
It is what it is. And he's definitely like a weirdo. Like I'm almost sometimes it's like this character shouldn't be playable online. Like it feels that way.
That's speaking of the story mode though, also because I played through 20 minutes of it, but I was like looking at the dialogue and stuff. One thing I'm getting now, I'm not sure if this is the game's focus, but it's like, if you like your fighting games to have like really interesting characters with unique backstories and attitudes, that's not what DNF Duel is, because these are RPG character archetypes.
Yeah. Like
their names are what it says on the tin. That being said, they do have attitudes and, they're animated and whatever nicely. And a couple of characters stand out to me. I'm like, that's cool. But some of them, I'm just like, I don't like Hitman and Troubleshooter. I was like, these are 2 characters. At first, when the other trailers were released, I was like, I thought there was already a white-haired guy with guns.
Yeah.
And
they're actually from the same class, I think, in DFO.
They are. Yeah.
They are.
They're like a different version of the classes when it upgrades.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are.
Oh, that makes sense then. And Launcher, when I first heard Launcher, I'm like, oh, it's a character that launches you in the air. And then when I see it's like, oh, they have a grenade launcher. Oh, okay. Or does she? Because I've even fought her in game. Does she launch you a whole lot?
She just throws a lot of guns. Rocket causes missiles.
She calls
grenades.
a giant like screen covering missile that slowly goes down, and you're like, God damn it! Like looking at this thing approaching from the sky.
I can take it.
God damn it!
So the one thing to know about like these classes and these characters, they have a lot of resemblance from the same tree. So like Gunner and Launcher would be from the same tree. Grappler and Striker would also be from the same tree. So a lot of these characters come from like the default look of the DFO characters, but they transform into something special. So like Berserker, Striker, Crusader, and Gunner, they're literally the default characters from Dungeon Fighter Online. But as you level up in DFO, you get to choose different classes with a different look.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I mean, how do you go ahead, Matt?
No, you go ahead, Max. You start.
I was going to say, like, I can't believe characters like Troubleshooter are thrown into the game, and it's like, oh, so this character's just asking me to play it. Got it. And then I play him, and he is just Hunter Predator from MKX. Like he's the same exact character archetype where he throws a trap, the trap goes off over time. If you get touched, the trap goes away, and you can also manipulate the trap to blow up or go off if you want to. Like, and it's got he's almost has similar combo structure. I'm like, wow, it's my favorite MKX character is now just in DNF Duel. Very cool.
So there you go, everyone. Max is asking for someone to mod Troubleshooter into an anime Predator now.
Yes, absolutely. Someone
That
get
would
a
be
Predator
cool.
skin over Troubleshooter.
That'd be really sick if you make him look like an AVP arcade, like because they have that bright color scheme. It
Yeah,
wouldn't look
you
that
could do
bad,
it.
actually.
Mhm.
Like, have you guys did you pay attention to the story mode at all? Because I did like look at 20 minutes, and like one thing about it is when character art just slides on the screen, that always, I'm not asking for, again, Mortal Kombat story mode, but when I see character art slide on the screen, I'm like, oh, okay, it's one of these.
It's-
Okay.
I mash. I literally mash. I
You
was like,
mashed?
nah,
Okay.
there's no way. Like I was gonna just read the whole thing because it's a lot of text. It's
It
a
is.
lot of text, and it seems like it's also very similar because
It's
I
voice
think
acted.
yeah, that's voice
true.
acted. But I think it seems pretty similar because we were talking about how like, oh, does your character go into a inn, the bar and blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, my character does go into an inn, gets the power of the will they're looking for, fight a random character from the game, and then proceeds to the next storyline. So it seems like it's kind of similar, but the text might just be obviously more different, and the voice acting is different as well too.
Yeah.
So but it does swap out characters that you fight, because we're saying how if you're Hitman, you fight Striker. If you're Striker, you fight Hitman.
Yeah,
It is in very similar effort to the stuff we were trying to do with KI with a very limited budget, where it was like each character should have like a story mode type of thing in the season. So we wanted to like do something unique. Every character's story mode is unique, at least. So it isn't just like one general story with just characters that zip like off screen and stuff like that. It's like one level below Dragon Ball FighterZ story mode stuff.
Oh man.
One level below that, because it doesn't have like they don't really put a camera in a scene and then place and block characters. They don't do that.
You're about to say Dragon Ball. I thought for some reason my stupid head thought you were going to say Dragon Ball Evolution on the PSP, the fighting game, because all of that is bad character art, like that is lifted from the movies and just painted over, and they just go zip zip. And when they have a fight, the portraits just slam against each other. It's the best.
Well, this one isn't portraits; it's in-game character models.
Yeah, they're just kind of like breathing there a little bit, sort of.
And
Yeah,
they talk,
it looks,
and they emote, and then they go, and they'll slide off screen.
Nani?
Yeah,
you know. Because I had a few people ask me like, oh, DNF Duel looks cool, but like, I want to know what type of story mode it has. And at that point, I didn't know because I hadn't gotten it yet. So when I saw it, I was like, I think this is fine. But I never played Granblue Fantasies
it's
story
good.
modes.
It's actually
It is,
really,
okay.
it's much better in that game. That game had a significantly bigger budget, which is weird because both these games are absolutely massive. That game got a pretty good consideration. Like what they do with the single player is something that I wish a lot of other fighting games would do, which is like a side-scrolling beat 'em up sort of game. That's what Granblue has.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it just from like before the launch of the game, it doesn't seem like there was a huge ton of budget, even from marketing perspective. Just kind of like the whole King of Fighters route with like 40-second trailer. Here's a new character, and there's kind of like no date placement for quite some time. So it just seems like they probably didn't have enough budget to do a lot of things like compared to Granblue. And because even with Granblue, like Cygames is like super heavy, like into like the whole development, making sure characters really represent their characters very well. I'm not sure how much of like Nexon Korea or Neopol had like when it comes to like DFO characters, because it's like if you want to play DFO story, like you just play DFO the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I was sort of like, I was hoping that they were going to like give us a DFO style mode, but I realized that ultimately takes away from Dungeon Fighter Online as a game, as an old like pixel game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was a couple episodes ago. You were asking like, yeah, maybe they're going to do that, and I'm like that seemed to make sense to me. But
too ambitious.
Now in hindsight, yeah, too ambitious. In hindsight, it's like, well, then just people want both camps to go play the other version, right? Go play the fighting game. If you want more like a bigger RPG, like a bigger world and stuff, tons more characters and things, go play the actual RPG. So, I mean, it's because Granblue was based. I'm really sorry. I always forget. Granblue is based on something. I don't know what it is to this day. It's another
It's a
RPG series.
Japanese mobile gacha game, right, Justin?
Japanese mobile gacha game that also
That's
became,
why I don't know.
That also became it also became an anime. So then they just made a fighting game of it.
Okay.
And it became fucking massive, like one of the biggest mobile games ever in Japan. So now they just have like infinite money to just throw up whatever they want.
And it's like, I guess it's not like similar here, but like, because I've heard of DNF, like DFO for years, 17 years, in fact, because I've gotten emails from the publishers, like it's just like oh, it's coming, DNF Duel, the fighting game based on the franchise that's been loved for 17 years, and I was like, Jesus, 17 years. I feel like that makes me feel old, specifically because I remember talking to someone like years and years ago where they're like, oh, I just heard of this cool new thing called Dungeon Fighter Online, and show me pictures like in QuickTime videos.
I used to play Dungeon Fighter Online, I would say around like 2008. So I knew about the game for quite a long time. I actually randomly, when I first moved to California,
you used to work on that game.
Yeah, I actually worked as a community manager for the USA market of Dungeon Fighter Online, and yeah, it was fun. The only issue we had was kind of like patches were never the same. So Korea always had like the craziest, like they were so way ahead of the game with different classes, while America just didn't have any patches whatsoever. Like we were playing like super like 1.0 build versus compared to Korea's at like 5.0, like 5 patches ahead of us. So it was very tough to get the community very excited, right? Because what can we do at that point if we're not getting builds? It wasn't even up to us at that point.
Yeah,
that's weird. So like, I know the internet was like not nearly, you can see like as many videos, but like people could potentially look at crazy shit that's happened on 5.1. Yeah. And you're stuck at level 1 on your build. That's crazy. Imagine if that happened nowadays. People would be like, what the fuck?
I mean, I think the closest thing we had to that was like probably the Monster Hunter World thing, right? Where like if you played on console, you're way ahead compared to when PC came out.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most similar or recent thing that I could think of.
The worst thing is Phantasy Star Online 2. That's the worst one. Like the 10-year wait, or practically the 8-9 year wait until it eventually made it overseas. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. So the question I got for you guys really fast is, how my most disappointing thing about this game is the fact that it's not at Evo.
Yo, man.
I would love to see this game played at a high level for a lot of money. It is like, oh, what nasty shit would people figure out at like high level for this stuff?
Well, like we talked about, it came out too late for Evo. Sometimes they make exceptions for things that come out too later, whatever. So
it'll have a tournament.
That would be sick.
It has a side tournament at Evo, which I'm 100% restreaming. That's the number one game I'm looking forward to Evo this year is actually DNF Duel, to see how grimy it gets.
Max has switched from Killer Instinct to DNF Duel.
it was definitely kind of like disappointing, because usually I 100% thought that DNF Duel would be at Evo, just because of like there's enough time for people to play the game and like find the broken stuff or find the competitive stuff in the meta. People are already doing that now with the online tournaments, right? Like Yipes and Tampa Never Sleeps been running tournaments for it already, which is like really been super fun to watch, because everyone's are just so much better at like understanding how to play fighting games these days, right? So the fact that you don't need months and months to like prepare or even like get like somewhat good at the game to play at a competitive level, so it was very unfortunate. I even tweeted and then like, oh man, I wish DNF Duel was a game at Evo, and then Rick just like sent me he replied to my tweet with the side tournament flyer, and I'm like,
yeah, I saw that,
boo. And I'm like, oh man, boo. Like, obviously it's gonna still be super hype, but like I thought maybe there could have been some possibly last minute addition, adding
that got figured out a long time ago.
Oh man, it would have been sick though. It would have definitely been super sick to see at the main stage, just because I think everyone would have just entered, because it's like the hot game right now, right? Like I think the one thing I also noticed is that like, if you're comparing like the amount of hype it had compared to like King of Fighters 15 versus DNF Duel, it seems like DNF Duel is just like really having the much more hype when it first came out compared to King of Fighters.
As much as I love King of Fighters, like I just always go by timelines and not like even my own. I see what other people are posting. Like if this person or this person, like Lythero or someone is posting a bunch and they're posting a bunch, and I'm just like, I see more stuff from DNF Duel in the last week than like KOF did in its like, opening week or two. Like, when there's new teams and stuff and DLC, obviously that pops up again. But like you guys having played a bit more, like, do you think like DNF Duel could possibly like still be relevant and have people still playing in another year so that it could potentially be at next year's Evo? Or do you think it's more like, it's going to be a smaller release and a couple characters and that's it? Or does it just depend on its sales? Like, I'm not sure.
I think it depends on a lot. And I really enjoy the game. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't really take games super seriously or compete anymore, so I just play games at their face value for what they're enjoyable for. And if I drop 20 hours into it, that's a great game, even if it's a fighting game. But no. No, okay. Like it's unfortunate, right? Very it's blunt. Weird. There hasn't been like and Guilty Gear Strive, like to an extent, still has some decent tournament numbers, like in general. But there was a huge drop off, like after the first 2 months of Guilty Gear Strive, like giant. And I hate to like to say I told you so type of shit, but this is exactly what happened with Guilty Gear Xrd back when it came out. It happens unfortunately with most anime games, where they make like a big splash and then there's no staying power. And it's unfortunate that
Arcana Heart, I don't
where's Arcana Heart? Let's get that back. It's unfortunate that is the case just in general, just because people's time and their influence on the stuff that they can do is spread thin to so many things now. That might be another situation. But it's also the fact that like the fighting games that have staying power are usually like the big three: the Capcom, the Namco, the NRS. And you would say like NRS doesn't have staying power. No, like it absolutely does. Like there's still people, you go and play MKX and you'll find a match in less than 20 seconds if you go to ranked mode or something like that. So, and that's a bit different than, a game like Guilty Gear Strive, or if you're on floor 6, you might just be screwed if you want to play ranks.
It's just that NRS bounces between games like,
so fast.
in 2 year cycles. So they don't stick with one for a very long time. They stick with them until, they're done and they move on to the next thing. Whereas Capcom had Street Fighter V for like 6 years, so.
And it's just a weird part of the fighting game community, of fighting games in general right now, where a game might come out and do relatively well, like Guilty Gear, for example, and it is doing well. Like the tournament numbers, a ton of people are playing it super seriously. It's great. But if you want to talk about like the casual impact that like a lot of like people stay and tune around to it, not really, not to the degree of like a giant anime property like Dragon Ball FighterZ, like carrying the hell out of that game for many years, to the point where it's still getting updates now that are pissing everybody off. Like it's different how the big fighting games from the big publishers usually do have that staying power, where they will stick around for quite some time, and the other smaller anime games just don't.
Yeah,
it's just like. Sorry, you go ahead, Justin.
No, I would say just right now, though, DNF Duel is in that honeymoon phase. And when it comes to just like, I would say a lot of people playing it, the viewership is up. It's definitely very similar in terms of, I would say, the viewership with Strive, where just a lot of people are just interested in the game. And I think it's because a lot of like people's favorite content creator or favorite player are usually enjoying the game because it's like an old school fighting game, like you said. Like it's just very fun. It has cheap things, and gamers like to do cheap stuff to other gamers as well too. So right now it just has the current staying power. It's the current flavor of the month. But I do hope it does last. Like I could see it at next year's Evo, just because when you think about it, like Granblue didn't really have a good start because of the pandemic. Also had delay-based netcode, but then also Evo gave it a shot, right? Because it kind of like it would have been a great game at Evo if the pandemic never happened. So I could definitely see Evo just having DNF Duel as like the next fighting game. But in terms of the numbers, I'm not sure if the numbers will stay or if the game will become a Discord fighting game where only people in Discord just meet up with each other to play if there's nobody else playing.
Yeah.
But I would say if they keep doing updates, I know it's part of the Arxis tour as well too, so that's going to be an incentive.
It's like $100,000 in that tour.
Yep. It's going to be so that's going to be an incentive for a lot of players. But I mean, I'm always down to play if you keep adding new characters because their design on characters and how to make them fun, they do a great job with that.
And this is just the base roster. So to imagine, like, you know, maybe even the Street Fighter V situation where they get used to it and they see how the game kind of evolves over the next year, and maybe like even crazier, even more interesting characters that could come out, because the ones that are here, it's like, yeah, their personalities are not crazy, but like when I'm just trying out a few myself, and I'm like, that's the craziest fucking special move I've ever seen. This special looks like a super in any other game,
and I can do it over and over and over. Wow,
pretty much. And like for those that I'm not, like, haven't really seen how it works, it's like, I read this and I didn't really understand until much later. It's like special moves in this game, you can either do them in two control methods. You're going to do them in like a traditional Street Fighter style, or you just do them in a Smash style where you just press up, down, left, right, or neutral or whatever, and press the button and you just do a special move. Like, it's better to do the command move. And I'm like, that's really good. Like, that's kind of like when you have a Shoto in Smash, and having a whole game built around that, and me not realizing until much later that that's what DNF Duel has. I was like, that's awesome, because I've like I said before, I had a few people saying DNF Duel looks really cool, and it seems like casual people do kind of enjoy, oh, this is just Grappler, this is Sword Guy, this is whatever.
Sword Guy.
It helps people like kind of identify immediately what they want to play, versus like, oh, what's this character's deal? Like there's a push and pull between like people wanting a deep character that has all this stuff and personality and backstory, versus, oh, I just want a cool character that shoots fire or like has an axe, or, you know, like whatever the hell Berserker is. I fought Berserker in the story mode. Berserker, just like Justin said, Berserker stood there and just let me wail on him, and I didn't mess with I don't know if there's a difficulty setting. I just went on default, so I don't know if they're supposed to be that like nothing, but I hope it does stick around. There's more characters. What you got, Justin?
So the crazy part about what you mentioned about like the simple inputs and the traditional inputs is that when you're doing these trial modes, they really advertise the simple inputs like heavily.
They do, huh?
Right? So I actually only do simple inputs at all. I don't even do the traditional inputs when I'm playing the game or doing combos or, you know, like just throwing stuff out. I did notice that other people are using traditional inputs, and I noticed that this is actually something that I guess they might have overlooked, where there's a big input buffer. So when you're doing like, let's say quarter circle forward, quarter circle forward, or quarter circle back, and press the skill button, sometimes you get your down special and not the actual correct special move you want. So that has happened. That has happened a lot in previous in like the current tournaments this week, that like motion inputs just get overridden by simple inputs sometimes. So that's definitely, I would say, a downfall from like, I guess, their control scheme for giving the ability to have both. I know that Granblue doesn't have that issue with the input buffers, because you could do both as well at the same time, and not compared to Street Fighter 6 where you choose which one you want.
From what I can tell, like, it's a similar thing to KOF, where it's like, oh, I just can't dash and do this move. I get the incorrect move if I want to do dash fireball. You actually have to like circumvent it and do like a half circle back to down, or half circle and there's a ton of that throughout DNF Duel, because each special has 3 different specials that you can do, and that's kind of the thing I appreciate about it, even though you have to get used to the way it works, where if you want to get the best version of a special move, it's called like an expert input, and it is equivalent to like just frame timing. So it's really specific. You have to hit it like right as the input comes out, almost like an electric, to get the best meter refill, and it comes back quick if you get the blue version.
So what you're saying is essentially MK versus DC's pro moves.
It is. It actually is. Except,
I don't like how straight you're playing this.
No, it is. It is the same thing, and it doesn't change the move itself, because pro moves were like EXs, I think. Like
they were.
If you did the input correctly.
I think they were, but like it.
But this is different.
I don't know.
This recovers more MP. Like, to be honest, a pro move is just an electric.
Yeah,
it was just super confusing because they weren't explaining how the hell to do it, and it came out crazy randomly in MK versus DC. But all they really are is like electrics, like around and just frame timing. So
have either of you put a video on either of your channels where you try to do the trials from MK versus DC and do the pro moves. Justin, you need to do this. You love trials.
I have never seen it, so I just want to see. I actually just want to experience how hard these pro moves actually are.
Please, you went back and played Street Fighter the movie, the PlayStation version, which is not that fun of a time.
It
you
was
can
bad,
do this.
Yeah, that's true. You're
it's
right.
Street Fighter the movie, but boring. You know.
Which is not like, considering everyone's freaking out about how godlike that Street Fighter the movie art is, it's time for that game to come back along. Have that at Evo along with DNF Duel. I did want to ask one final thing to you guys, aside from Max saying it's disappointing that it's not at Evo, is there anything you wish you would like to see change in the game in the future, either modes, features, balance changes, or anything like that, or is it it's still a little too early to say?
I think mobility in general feels just a kind of whack on a lot of characters. If you play like Striker or Kunoichi or Swiftmaster, you're doing great. It's like you're having so much goddamn fun with the mobility. But yeah, a lot of characters in general, you have to utilize MK9 level dash blocking because the game doesn't have a block button in order to actually approach some of these characters. So I don't think it needs to get really much crazier. It just needs to feel a little bit more responsive, right? In the same way that there was recently a weird bug that happened in KOF 14, a version that made dashes really unresponsive. They happened way later than they were supposed to, and then they patched it in the next patch. It feels like that needs to be something that they do, right? There needs to be make dashes feel like they come out a bit quicker on some characters.
Okay. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I agree with the mobility thing. So, besides come from I would say a gameplay mechanic standpoint, maybe I would say a different online mode, just having a different option besides just kind of ranking casual match, because it's super bare bones. Like I said, it's probably a fighting game that has 10 to 15 years ago where it's all you have is rank and player matches, but maybe kind of more of a possible King of Fire section where it's 2v2 draft mode, or even just kind of maybe a possible RPG mode. But I would say just kind of more online modes to have more variety for players. I think that would be pretty cool.
Though the online is relatively bare bones. It's casual matches with lobby and ranked. I'm personally am super in love with the ranked right now because it does it quick. Sometimes it doesn't do it and you just reset it and bam, you just get a match super fast. You don't spend a lot of time menuing really, especially at gold and below. And then you get a bit higher to diamond, and the ones above, it takes a bit longer for the game to find people for you. But my God, man, I've dropped 200 games into ranked, and I was getting 100 games a day in a few hours. That's how quick it was.
So in general for the online, just online ladder matches, Hell in the Cell, that type of thing.
Yeah, like King of the Hill, or just anything, money, money in the bank, type of stuff. but anything just because I think King of Fighters 15 does a great job with that, where you just have different, I think they have 4 online modes, right? With 3v3, 1v1, draft mode, and party mode. So just having those modes kind of would be pretty much, I think it would be more fun.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Justin Wong wants a Money in the Bank online mode for DNF Duel.
It'd be funny if you win Money in the Bank like ladder, right? That you challenge the Evo champion. Whoever wins, that's the Evo champion.
You can run in. They should have that for CEO.
Bro, I'm cashing it in.
We are waiting for the Dark Souls of fighting games. Let us have it. We're ready.
Soul Edge has nothing on a lightsaber. I'm sorry.
James Earl Jones comes back.
No!
Oh no! Oh!
I don't think kids trade games anymore. I need that sense of accomplishment, and it wasn't there. And I think that was a major flaw.
The way they engineer these is just phenomenal.
As much as you're into the comics, I was very into the toys, so I was on the message board all the time.